Okay, so it does look like it's 12 o'clock. We might get a few more individuals come in, but I think I'm just going to go ahead and start. So, good morning. My name is Patricia Wyrick. I'm the Rural Forestry Program Coordinator for the State of South Dakota Department of Ag and Natural Resources. We are very appreciative to our speakers that we have today. From the United States Department of Public Safety, Wildland Fire, South Dakota Game Fish and Parks, the United States Department of Agriculture Farm Service Agency, the United States Department of Agriculture and Natural Resource Conservation Service, the Custer, Lawrence, and Fall River Conservation Districts as well. So before we get started, I have a few housekeeping items to discuss. So today's workshop is going to be recorded, with the recordings being placed on the South Dakota Department of Ag and Natural Resources YouTube channel for public viewing once reviewed and approved by our staff and technical support team. Danner is an equal opportunity provider and wants to encourage participation. However, if you would not like to be part of the live recording, an email of the recordings will be uploaded and sent to everyone who registered for this webinar. All microphones and videos have been turned off, and due to bandwidth concerns, we request that they stay off during the presentation. At the end of the presentation, please ask your questions, but that way we can go ahead and have this recording available for YouTube to ensure that nothing gets cut out. At the end of the presentation, we'll be taking all the questions. Any questions that you have can also be placed in the chat box, or you can raise your hand to allow your microphone to be turned on. Please turn them off if you haven't. I did have to turn one off. So with that, let me introduce to you the South Dakota Department of Public Safety, Wildland Fire, Logan Brown.
You did. Sorry about that. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Logan Brown. I am the Fields Program Manager for South Dakota Wildland Fire. And let me share my presentation here with you today. All right, I'm going to explain our Fields Reduction Program. So South Dakota Wildland Fire does offer a 8% cost share program available for landowners. The objectives of this ultimately is when there's a wildfire event, we're hoping that the home survives. So with that, there's a concept of the homing condition zone, which is the home itself along with the vegetation that leads up to the home. So the goal of this, if I get my laser pointer here, the goal of this program is when there's a fire that's approaching the house, we're going to manipulate the fuels, essentially the trees, in such a way that if there's a crown fire, it'll transition back down to a ground fire before it hits the house. At least that's the goal of the treatment in our program. So the 80% cost share program is available for landowners in Lawrence County, Pennington, Farver, Meade, and Custer County. It's an 80% program where we reimburse the lowest bid, not to exceed a max reimbursement of $1,200 per acre. And we can treat half an acre up to 10 acres around structures. The general prescription that we follow is we're looking to remove ponderosa, pine trees, spruce, cedar, and juniper that are 10 inches diameter and smaller to create a 25-foot tree spacing. Any of the remaining trees will be limbed up 6 to 8 feet, not to exceed a third of the total tree height. Then also any dead and down will get removed with this program as well. Some of the common methods we have for removing this slash is they'll be hand piled and burned in the winter. They can be chipped or masticated, and there's some projects where the contractor can just haul the slash off. Here's kind of a before and after picture. So the top picture shows where, kind of a standard forest here in the Black Hills. There's some regen, some dead and down, kind of higher stand densities. And then the bottom portion of the picture just shows what it looks like after it's been thinned. Obviously, the slash was stacked into hand piles to be burnt during the winter. A couple things that are not included or not covered under this program is we don't do select tree removal. Just slash disposal from a timber sale. We don't do that. We don't cover that. It's not a timber sale. We're not going to go in and take the big diameter trees. We don't do any clear cutting. So we are limiting that to that 25-foot tree spacing. And generally speaking, anything that's not creating or enhancing survivable space, again, that's the goal of the program. So if we're not contributing to that, it's not going to qualify for the program. Steps for landowners that are interested in this, the 8% cost share program is they contact us. We go out and look at the property with them, make sure it's eligible. They get 3 bids from contractors. They submit to us the 3 bids plus a request for cost share form, which is a half-page form they fill out with their contact information. We set a reimbursement rate based on the lowest bid, approve them to begin work on the project. They select whichever contractor they would like. Once the work's been completed, they'll let us know. We go out there and inspect it, make sure it meets our prescription. And then from there, they can pay the contractor, and then submit us an invoice for reimbursement. Once the project's done, the landowner is responsible for maintaining that prescription or that treatment for 10 years. So that's kind of a brief overview of what the steps for landowners. Seems like a lot, but actually can go pretty quick as long as they can work with contractors to get the bids. I do have 4 staff that meet with the landowners. We have Jordan Harrington in the Northern Hills, kind of looking at the Central Hills. We got Brittany and Adam. Then the Southern Hills, we have Lane Austinson. If landowners interested, they can reach out to them. Otherwise, here's my contact information if anyone needs to reach out to me with any questions on this program. Other than that, I guess any questions, throw in the chat or save them till the end. Thank you.
Thanks, Logan. So we also have Ben with South Dakota Department of Game Fish and Parks. I know he was on.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone.
Ben, you need me to throw up a slide or you got some?
Okay. I just shared my slides if if everybody can see them.
Yep, you're doing great so far.
Okay. All right. So, South Dakota Game and Fish has a private lands program for specifically hardwood enhancement in the Black Hills and in the surrounding um, area. I'll briefly describe kind of why we have this program, and then we can go into what the cost share is, and then with any questions after everything's said and done. So kind of why we're doing this. So historically, the Black Hills had a fire return interval of between 14 and 30 years. So between that fire return interval is when expecting of when a fire would come through. Um, Longer in the northern hills, shorter in the southern hills. Obviously, the southern hills is drier and more prone to fire. Hardwoods are generally slow growing and several to coniferous species. So they in a succession they are kind of the first ones to establish, and then your pine and spruce will eventually overtake those species if a fire or disturbance doesn't happen again. Aspen, birch, and oak relied on fire to spark regeneration and to knock those conifers out and kind of reset the the dynamic that they have. So on the left-hand side, the black and white photo is a photo of Castle Creek taken back in 1874 during Custer's expedition into the Black Hills. Um, you can see on the right-hand side of that valley, there's a significant aspen grove. There's significant willows along that creek bottom as well. And then in the present day photo, taken, I believe 2020, you pretty much see that all the spruce and pine have kind of taken over that area, and there's no longer any aspen groves. Aspen use root suckers to clone themselves. Clones in the Black Hills are thought to be between 8,000 to 9,000 years old. Um, and aspens typically are stimulated um, by fire browsing or the cutting of mature trees by beaver mechanical removal. Typically, they don't produce readily via seed production, so these clones are pretty important to maintaining the aspen groves that we currently have. So this program basically is focused on removing those ponderosa pine and spruce that are encroaching into those areas and allowing for that regeneration to occur. This is some pictures of a project we just completed this year. You can see the amount of material that was removed. Um, this is an example of a good example of what can happen after a fire. So this is the Jasper burn out west of Custer. In the fire came through in 2000. Um, Obviously was a very catastrophic fire. But part of I guess the good thing about some of it was is that it really started a big regeneration of aspen trees along this ridge, and all those aspen are relatively the same age, and that's basically what happens. And after a big fire like that, where there's aspen clones there, that regeneration could take place readily. And this picture was taken, 25 years later after that. This is example of the hardwood enhancement project after it's been completed. Everything inside of that aspen grove that is not an aspen or a or a diseased aspen has been removed from that area, and then kind of that surrounding area. The spacing is between uh, 50 and 100 feet, and that just allows those aspen suckers to have a chance to compete against those pine species. Uh, One of the problems that we also see is these aspen suckers get heavily browsed by deer and elk, and they can also get browsed on by livestock. So the regeneration can be stunted. This is kind of an example of where all those sticks in uh, the foreground are small aspen shoots trying to regenerate, and they're getting nipped off before they can reach sufficient height to have to escape browsing. So we do offer a program to help with fencing as well. To if you have problems with elk or deer browsing that, or maybe have some livestock that you'd like to keep those aspens safe and allow them to regrow. This is a photo taken of a research plot from the Rocky Mountain Research Station. Um, the aspen is probably about 10 years old and is still only about a foot tall. So that's kind of what can happen, and what happens a lot in these, especially these small groves in the Black Hills. Um, Roughly 400 suckers, about 13 feet tall, need to be in an aspen grove to withstand the browsing pressure of elk in heavily populated elk areas. So it's important that there's sufficient um, uh, aspen stands, and in the Black Hills, especially on private ground, a lot of these aspen groves are, less than an acre or maybe 1 or 2 acres. There's some that are larger, but in general, um, it can, especially with elk, they can come in there and quickly nip off all the buds needed for regrowth that next year. If protected, aspen suckers should reach sufficient height to avoid browse in 6 to 8 years. Um, this is based on data from Rocky Mountain Research Station. We're not exactly sure how long it'll take in the Black Hills, but hopefully it'll take somewhere around that time frame as well. So that's an example of a fence that was established in the Northern Hills. You can see a lot of old stand growth with the aspen, but then very little regeneration below. So our cost share assistance, we provide landowners 75% of the cost, up to $600 per acre, and a maximum of 15,000 per year for that hardwood enhancement, removing those pine and conifer species around those trees. And then we also reimburse for exclusion fence 50% of the cost, up to $3.50 a foot, and there's no maximum amount for that. And there's kind of where I got a lot of the information and pictures. So you can dig into that a little bit more if people want to.
Thank you, Ben. So I know that on our presenters, we have Jim Neal with the United States Department of Ag Farm Service Agency, and he's here to talk about the Emergency Forest Restoration Program. Mr. Neal.
Hey, good afternoon. Thanks for inviting me, Patricia, and appreciate being here and part of this presentation. So, the Farm Service Agency has a program called the Emergency Forestry Restoration Program. And this program is designed to provide financial assistance to help forested landowners with cleanup following a disaster event. So the way that it works is that it's a cost share program, and the producer applies for cost share through the Farm Service Agency, and then we work with our partners that have the foresters on staff, whether it's the Forest Service or the State Forestry, to provide the technical assistance, because they have the foresters on staff that can do the assessments of what needs to be done following the disaster, what needs to be cleaned up and associated with it. So lately, this program's got a little bit of traction with the high winds we had back in December, and so we've been accepting applications for cleanup for tree removal associated with the high winds in December. To date, we're like a little over 110, I think, applications here in Penn County, and it's extended through like Fall River, Custer, Meade, and Lawrence counties as well, pretty much everywhere in the Black Hills. And so the Patricia and her staff and the forestry department over there have been doing a lot of work, doing the inspections for us, and so we have received funding from at least for the requests that we've gotten in so far. So we are at the point now we're starting to do cost share agreements with landowners that have applied with us, and so it's good that we are getting this program moving and open up here. But what I want to touch on, because I think a lot of people already are aware of like that we have this program going on, and if not, please feel free to share that information with others that were maybe affected by it. As opposed to like South Dakota Wildland Fire or Game Fish and Parks or this is not what we have is not really a conservation or preventative measures. This is simply going to be an after disaster event. Currently, we're doing it with the high winds, but it is not limited just to the high winds, and it can be utilized for any type of disaster. So, and it doesn't necessarily need to be a large, widespread disaster. It can simply affect just one landowner. Like if we had a case where a tornado, randomly affected just a small acreage within the Black Hills, that one landowner, as long as a private landowner, can apply for EFRP through us. The process for us is simply to get that approved as an eligible disaster event, and then we can request funding and request the type of cleanup and associated with that specific disaster event. Currently, we're doing a lot of just simply forest slash removal and cleaning up and removing the trees that were dead and down from the storm. But it can be extended to tree plantings. I see here. So we're going to be more than just like the debris removal, but we can do actually full restorations depending on the situations. Such items as like wildfires can be considered as an eligible disaster event for this as well. So it's the key point that I wanted to get out from this meeting today is to spread awareness that this program does exist. There's a process for us to implement it here in our county and for the producers. And so that the more people are aware of it, if there is an event that occurs, then we can start this process if needed in order to get this program active to help assist private forest landowners with some assistance in restoring their forested land following a disaster event. And so that's the program that the Farm Service Agency has right now. Currently, the sign up for the windstorm restoration is a 60-day sign up that is started back in January and runs through the 26th of March. So we're still actively taking applications for that, and just want to make sure we spread the message that is available. It is by county, but if you do reach out to me, then I will be more than happy to get you set up with the right office. But it's typically administered in the physical location county office. So if there's my phone number and contact information, if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to me, or you can post them in the chat and or ask during this presentation. I'd be more than happy to help answer this for you. So thanks so much, Patricia, for having me on and help me share this information.
Well, thank you, Jim, so much for joining us. We also have the United States Department of Agriculture and Natural Resources, United States Department of Agriculture Natural Resource Conservation Service Laura Bosworth with us to talk about the Environmental Quality Incentive Program.
Thanks, Patricia. I think I'll probably talk about, we have about 5 programs that we offer. I'll kind of just briefly talk about each of them. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and turn my camera off. Okay, so hi, I'm Laura Bosworth. I'm the State Conservation Forester for South Dakota. So we have a few programs that are available to help you improve your forest land. And I'll also kind of talk about some of the practices that we offer with these programs for a little bit of specifics. So we've got 5 main programs, and each program serves a slightly different purpose, but they can be tailored to your land's needs. Our programs do not have minimums or maximums on acres treated or tree sizes, but they do have their own specific requirements. Over the next couple slides, I'll try and break them down just to like the bare bones for you guys. They get a little confusing. So our main program, which Patricia mentioned, is the Environmental Quality Incentives Program. EQIP. EQIP is really like our let's fix it problem. We're looking at a specific issue like overcrowded trees or a fuels hazard. This is where we really start with conservation. These contracts can be short and the process can be fairly straightforward, but it is a highly competitive program. Our contracts usually range between 1 and 5 years, but with EQIP, they can go up to 10 if needed. Reimbursement comes as practices are applied. They must meet NRCS standards and specifications, and they will be inspected. And then once they pass that inspection, we pay. Our payment rates are flat. They're a flat rate, but the rate varies on like implementation. So if you're just going to cut trees with a chainsaw, it's a different rate than if you're going to have to bring in big machinery. So the idea is that it's similar to a cost share, but without having to submit receipts. We have like decided like, okay, these kind of activities roughly cost this much, and that's what we base our payment scenarios on. EQIP can be placed on any eligible land, private, public, and leased property. Our next program that's heavily used is the Conservation Stewardship Program, or CSP. Instead of focusing on like one area, CSP really looks at the whole operation. It's designed to reward the good work you're already doing and add in even more conservation. It's a great step for like people looking to like level up their conservation. To qualify for CSP, you would have to meet the NRCS's stewardship threshold of amount of resource concerns that are currently addressed and will be addressed in your contract. Changing this year, we now have just one flat base payment rate for all land uses. So you get a payment based on like the conservation you're already doing, and then you can go ahead and add new activities to that. These activities are very similar to those that are found in EQIP. We used to have something called enhancements, but we no longer have enhancements. It is a 5-year contract. And starting this year, we also no longer offer CSP renewals. There is a specific fund pool in CSP for non-industrialized private forest. That is a great opportunity for people already doing a lot of forestry work. The one thing is that this doesn't include any practices that are installed on crop or rangeland. It focuses on practices on forest land. The Regenerative Pilot Program, RPP, is like our newest program that just came out, but it is more of an incentive than a program. It is run through EQIP or CSP. It's designed for folks like that really want like a more holistic approach and to look at everything across their operation. It requires an NRCS review of your entire operation, all your soil and water resource concerns on the forest must be met and addressed by the end of the contract. And you also have to have a contractor come out and conduct soil tests at the start and the end of the contract. Similar to what we used to have for our climate smart practices, there are certain main practices that you have to include, and forest stand improvement is a main practice. And with inclusion of that, you can add on other practices that aren't main practices. Another program we offer is the Regional Conservation Partnership Program, our CPP. I'm not sure why they made the acronym so close together. This is where we team up with like partners to get like bigger projects done. Our CPP is designed to support specific resource concerns. This program can be a lot more flexible, but it relies really heavily on having a main partner who is engaged and willing to do a lot of paperwork. These partners will submit proposals to work with NRCS and administer the projects, and they get selected on a national basis, not through our state. When there is a funded RCPP project, landowners are able to apply for money from that project through a specific EQIP fund pool. In South Dakota right now, we have several RCPP projects to address the conifer encroachment on the grasslands, wildlife habitat, irrigation efficiency, and a few others that aren't super forestry related. Our last program that I'm going to touch base on is our easement program. It's designed for landowners who want long-term protection, whether it's grasslands or wetlands. It keeps your land working while also improving wildlife and water concerns. We have two types of easements: the agricultural land easement, which focuses on working lands, and the wetland reserve easement, which restores and protects wetlands. These easements are applied to and held by a third party, and the NRCS will contribute up to 50% of the fair market value of the property. So just a little bit of what practices we have. So if you sign up for one of our programs, likely you will be installing one of these conservation practices. These are the tools we have in our toolbox, like thinning, brush management, fuel breaks, residue treatment. We have many practices that go beyond this specifically for crop and rangeland. I'm just going to focus on our main forestry ones so you guys can get out of here today. So forest stand improvement, or 666, all of our practices have numbers, is really our bread and butter. This is just our main thinning, where we thin out overcrowded trees. We can thin to reduce wildfire risk, increase wildlife habitat, increase structure and composition of the forest. This is kind of like our main practice we use. Brush management is not a forestry practice, but a rangeland practice. And we use this one quite often to remove those unwanted woody plants from grasslands and meadows. So this is where it's really managing the intermixing grasslands in the Black Hills. The other programs we offer are woody residue treatment. This is to manage the activity created from forestry work or created from natural disasters. This is another program that could be used to clean up from that December windstorm. We also have pruning. We're starting to see this get used more and more, especially around homes, by people wishing to remove potential ladder fuels. We have fuel break and fire break. They sound very familiar, but they're used differently. Fuel breaks are designed to slow down a wildfire. It requires tree thinning, treating the slash, and pruning, where a fire break is designed to stop a wildfire, and it generally requires you to be down to bare mineral soil. We usually use fire break when we're installing prescribed burns in order to remove eastern red cedar from the grasslands. Some of our lesser used practices that are out there are forest trails and landings and forest trails and landings closure. These are used to help us protect soil and water resource concerns when heavy machinery is involved, and then to just close those up when we're done with them. So just to kind of give you guys a quick recap, EQIP is for specific problems. CSP is to increase conservation on your entire operation. RPPP is designed to have holistic operation focusing on soil health. RPP is when we work with our partners to provide specific conservation to a wider audience. And ASIP is our easement program. So if you guys are ever interested in any of these programs, just go into your local NRCS office and you can talk with one of the conservationists there, and they'll help you make a plan, tailor it to your goals and objectives and your needs of the property. Yeah, thanks for listening to me, and feel free to reach out with any questions.
Thank you, Laura. It's a lot of info in a very short amount of time.
Does not help that I talk really fast.
I know that your agency has a lot of opportunities for landowners. So So next we have the South Dakota Conservation Districts. I believe that Mike Baldwin is on with the Custer County Conservation District.
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. Well, just in general, the conservation districts are identified in each area of the entire state of South Dakota. They have a supervisory board that looks at and determines all grant fund requests. These come from local districts, go to the state, get funded or not. And in South Dakota, specifically the Black Hills region, we have these conservation districts. Butte Conservation District, Elk Creek Conservation District, and Lawrence Conservation District are working collectively, even though they are 3 separate conservation districts and located in their specific areas. With that, most of the conservation districts that are located within the Black Hills area for counties primarily follow the county lines, with the exception of East Pennington versus Pennington County. And then also Elk Creek Conservation District runs over by Interstate 90, and then you go North Mead and it goes into the Tri-County Conservation District. So with that general info, Mike, do you want to talk about Custer?
Yeah, let me share my slides. Can you see that okay?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so thank you. Again, my name's Mike Baldwin. I'm the district manager for Custer County Conservation District. I'm just gonna cover the 4 districts in the hills that currently or in the past have had thinning cost share grants. If my slide will work. There we go. So for our cost share grants, they're 50-50 up to a maximum amount. If you're doing thinning, the maximum payment would be $750 per acre, and that's without slash treatment. If you do thinning in addition to that, do the slash treatment, then you can get up to $900 an acre. So for example, you have a project, you hire a contractor, they charge $1,000 an acre, we'll pay you $500 back. But if they charge you $2,000 an acre, and you did both thinning and slash treatment, the most we could pay is $900. Some details about our grants. Applications are approved by each district's board of supervisors. And of course, it's always dependent on funding availability. So, and sometimes we have a lot of interest, and there are occasions where we'll have to rank applications. So the board will take into account whether it's in the landowners in a priority area, or if they already have a forest stewardship plan. Usually our projects are funded for between 5 to 20 acres. On occasion, we funded projects up to 50, but that's rare. We do work closely with state foresters. Once we get an application, we share that with the forester. They go out to the project, meet the landowner, write up a prescription. And then once the work's done, they go back to the property and make sure everything's done according to the plan. Excuse me here. So landowners have the option to either hire a contractor, or it's possible that they could do the work themselves. Projects generally need to be completed in 1 or 2 years. We do recommend thinning between September and mid-April because of Ips pine engraver beetles. It is possible to work with other programs, but we would like to talk to you about that ahead of time. For example, if you own 15 acres, you could go to Wildland Fire and have them cover the majority of the project and then come to us for the balance. And similar to Wildland Fire, reimbursement would occur once everything's completed. So that was it. Here's some contact information. Feel free to reach out to me or to your district. Thank you.
Mike, with that, Custer Conservation District grants cover boundary of Custer County, correct?
Yeah, our district is the same as our county boundary.
And then Fall River is the same. Lawrence Conservation District currently has grants that cover both Butte, Lawrence, and Elk Creek's area for conservation districts. So
yeah, and I think they have about, I spoke to Yvette this morning, and I think they have roughly 50 acres of funding available up there.
awesome. Thank you, Mike.
Sure.
So with that, I've got one additional that could not make us with us today. South Dakota Family Forest Association is a private nonprofit organization. They received an inflation reduction grant, and with that, they are currently having a thinning program similar to the district's, except it is only available to individuals who are members of South Dakota Family Forest Association, which is a volunteer program. One of the requirements of that program is to have a standing forest stewardship plan that is recognized by the state of South Dakota. With that, to participate in their grant, the landowners must be members, and it's an 80% cost share for on-the-ground management. So if someone is doing work and hires a professional contractor, they'll reimburse 80%, not to exceed $1,600 an acre, so a total cost of $2,000 an acre. They do have a separate price if a landowner chooses to do the work themselves. And with that, the maximum reimbursement is $1,300 an acre, or $1,040 is actually what's reimbursed of that 80%. To apply, talk to the South Dakota Department of Ag and Natural Resources. Make sure you're a member of South Dakota Family Forest Association, and work can occur year-round in most cases, with the exception of certain forest stewardship plans that indicate it, because that review is required, as well as encouragement to not harvest during the summer due to the Ips that Mr. Baldwin talked about. So with that, this is the contact information for the agencies that have reached out, and I'm going to stop recording for questions.